Kathleen Wall, we thank you so much for joining the ICT Newscast today.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us about these really beautiful figures that you brought with you to the studio today.
Well, these are Pueblo pottery. When I was a child, I learned to make Pueblo pottery by my aunts and my mother, primarily my mother. And so these are a rendition of the Pueblo singers. And in our community, we have a very active singing culture. And so I just wanted to pay homage to that. And I just feel like it's a good way to honor not only the songs we have and the culture we have, but their ability to carry on language, because through the songs we get to hear stories, and we get to hear directions and different ways of being, basically, in each song that somebody writes.
You know, what's really powerful to me about your statement is that you're telling stories through your art. And I want to ask you, as a storyteller, what the single most pressing issue is for Indigenous people in this day and age that you're observing?
Well, you know, Indian country is so vast, and there's so many people affected on different demographic levels, economic levels, because we have urban Indians, we have reservation Indians, just rural allotment natives as well. But I think that there's one thing that we all have in common, and that is the blood quantum, and how tribes keep track of that blood quantum through CIB programs. I think, or I feel as though it's detrimental to our communities to have not only a stigma of not being a full-blood Indian, but not belonging to a certain tribe. I think there's, the CIB system allows for bias and animosities towards just mixed cultures and mixed native cultures. And that for me, I feel as though we would be better off if we encouraged our leaders to think of ways to solve the problem. I mean, I know, like, let's see, Red Lake, Chippewa, they just recently upped their blood quantum to where more people were accepted, and or just looking to the future. I mean, this is one thing we have to think of, is looking at our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren and where Native country and Native people will be in the future.
I want to ask you the flip side of that question, because I think when you're a Native person, it's really in our nature to come from a place of abundance. And something we have a lot of in this day and age is joy and humor and laughter. But I want to ask you the flip side of what is the greatest strength of Indigenous people in 2024?
Well, there's a lot of strength, but I brought these pieces primarily because I wanted to highlight language and culture. And that's one thing that I am inspired by all the time. I'm inspired by my community and their ability to speak fluently all the time. And also the songs, you know, the songs keep us all going. We all, so many Pueblo people partake in dancing. And these particular men that sing songs keep the culture alive, and they keep our spirits going. I mean, I don't know if you remember, but you know, when you're dancing in the plaza, Pueblo people, we dance in the plaza, and sometimes it's so tiring. And you know, when you start passing by the drum and the singers, something just awakens you. And I know this is true for every Native out there. As soon as they hear that drum, it just awakens something so beautiful and so, I think, connected to every other Native. And I think that's a strength.
Something that I really love, especially you mentioned the singers in the plaza, is when the drummers, they have babies, and they'll be really small babies, and they'll be holding them as they're singing. And I think it's really beautiful that that's a way for future generations to be connected quite literally as a newborn or a 2-month-old, 4-month-old.
You're right. That's why I made the youngest boy in the middle, because there's always young boys partaking with their uncles and fathers and just going up, and they're always welcome. You know, that's the thing about the drum groups across the United States, across the Indian country, and also the drum groups and singing groups in Pueblo country, that, you know, it's always welcome to all the boys to come and join and learn the language and learn the songs.
I want to talk about teachers, because teachers are so vital in every part of everyone's life. So tell us who taught you this craft and how it's grown so much in the time since you started.
Well, my mother taught me. I was one of these kids that just sat at the kitchen table with her while she was making pottery. And so it's not so much a lesson. It's not so much, I'm going to teach you this and I'm going to teach you that. It's just an absorption. You know, Pueblo kids, we kind of just absorb the Pueblo pottery from our mothers and the surroundings, because a lot of times your mother will be working with her auntie. And so that's where I became very close to my aunts and very close to my mom. And we still work together. Even in fact, working on these particular pieces, my mom came and sat with me and we just visited. And it's a really special time.
Yeah. You not only dig your own clay to make these really beautiful pieces, but you also harvest your own paints. I imagine that you spend so much time alone with your thoughts and with yourself. What are some of the greatest lessons that you've learned about yourself in all of the time that you spend making these really beautiful creations?
That's a great question. It takes you back to the clay, because so many pieces I make aren't highlighted that they're traditional clay. And the clay has so many lessons. And I think the first and foremost lesson that clay teaches you is patience, because so many times it wants to do what it wants to do. Like, it wants to dry at a certain rate in the summer where you cannot control it. And then in the winter, it doesn't want to dry at all. So, I mean, I think it teaches you that you have to be patient with everything around you. Hard work, of course, because digging clay and foraging for paints is hard work. In fact, it's very hard for me to find black anymore. After my aunties passed from Cochiti, she used to give me black paint, and now I purchased my black paint from the store because I can't find any. And that's one thing that, you know, I feel as though that it's okay as long as we're making art. There's always going to be things that we can't find in our culture, and there's always going to be things that are untangible. But as long as we keep working and we keep, you know, expressing ourselves in our given talents and our given mediums, I think it's okay.
Well, Kathleen, I've really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much for being with us.
You're welcome.